All across modern superhero media, there's a formula we all recognize. You start with an origin or a setup, who the hero is, how they got here, and what they can do. Then you get into a quick, early fight scene to establish the tone. And after that, it's really just a mix of character development, plot progression, and an occasional fight scene. And then things escalate. The hero loses, a side character usually gets defeated, stakes get personal. And eventually, everything builds up towards the final battle. It's a big CGI fight, hero versus villain, world on the line. And in the end, the good usually wins. Evil loses, and roll the credits. That's usually the modern superhero structure. The Marvel formula, per se. And it's not just Marvel anymore. DC, Sony, Netflix, practically everybody's using it in some form. But the interesting part is, what happens to that same structure when it starts showing up in media that's usually made to mock it? The Boys doesn't really need an introduction. But still, it started as a satire form of superhero media. Not just the superheroes themselves, but the entire system around them. Corporate superheroes, branding, corruption, all of it really. And it doesn't ease you in either. Right off the bat, Huey's normal life gets ripped apart when A-Train turns his girlfriend into red mist in mere seconds. No slow build-up, no warm-up, just impact. And that sets the tone almost immediately. And then we meet Butcher, the rest of the boys, and the Seven, who are all basically warped versions of the classic superhero teams. But here's the key difference. In this world, nobody's fully good. The heroes aren't heroes. The villains aren't actually villains. And even characters like the Deep and Homelander aren't written to fit the simple moral boxes. They're more like disasters wearing costumes. And for a while, that's really what made the show work. It wasn't building towards a clean superhero ending. It was all about escalation, consequences, and watching everything slowly get worse in the most interesting of ways. But at a certain point, something changes. And this is where the MCU comparison really starts to show up. Because when a show like this becomes successful, it stops being just a show. It becomes a full franchise. Spin-offs get developed, such as Gen V and other projects that get teased or expanded on. And suddenly, instead of one contained story, you've got a growing universe that you're expected to keep up with. And that's not necessarily a bad thing on its own, but it does shift priorities. Because now the question isn't just, what's the best story? It's now, how do we keep this world going? And this whole situation especially becomes noticeable in the later stretch of the series. In the final season, or final stretch of the show, depending on how you view it, it's juggling a lot at once, wrapping arcs, setting up future stories, and it's still trying to land on that one satisfying ending. And it clearly shows. Some storylines feel rushed. Others feel like a setup for what's next rather than what the payoff is that came before. And even the final itself leans into a more traditional superhero structure than earlier seasons ever did. And it's all about big confrontation, clear resolution, in a more familiar heroes versus villain shape than the chaos the show once thrived upon. And that's really where the frustration comes from. Because the show that once prided itself on breaking the superhero expectations really starts leaning back on what it matters most to them. And that's the irony of it all. The Boys didn't start as a superhero story. It started as a critique of modern-day superhero franchises. But success changes incentives. And over time, even a parody could start resembling the thing that it was once making fun of. Not because it suddenly forgot what it was, but because the system was mocking its same system that keeps it going. So when people say that The Boys feels different now, or less sharp than it used to be, that's really what they're reacting to. Not just plot choices, but a shift in identity. From something that challenged franchise storytelling to something that now exists inside of it. And that is the real MCU problem.